Hello, welcome back to Artsy-Island-Girl. Today I'm making another beach resin tray, but this time with some non-traditional colors. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to sand the bottom of my tray. This is just a plastic tray that's being recycled from, like, it's a meat and cheese tray. So I want to sand it so that the plastic isn't quite as smooth and that it has some tooth to it for the resin to hold on to. And I'm only sanding it where the resin is going to lay, so I don't sand the entire thing that's going to be visible. So I'm using some color shift paints in a pink, a purple, and a blue. Not as easy to find the different colors online, but Walmart carries these paints, so you can easily find them there. So the first thing I am going to put down is my sand and resin mixture. And then I'm going to spread that out. And once that is spread how I like, I'm going to add the pink layer. I'm doing the pink layer kind of farther away from the beach shoreline. And then I'm going to do the purple layer. And then I'm going to do the blue layer. And what I want to do between the layers, I want to kind of swirl them together. I don't want them to be there to be a clear distinction between the different colors. So once I have the colors as much as I want, I put a clear line, and then I put my white layer for the white of the waves. And I'm putting that right along the edge of the sand and resin mixture. So I'm using my heat gun with the wide tip on a very low setting, and I get rid of all of the bubbles that have risen to the surface. And once they're all gone, I'm using a finer tip to my heat gun, and I'm blowing on a higher setting to blow the white over top of the other colors for the white of the waves. And then once I have that as I like, I'm taking a Q-tip with some isopropyl alcohol, and any of the white that's splashed onto the edges of the tray, I'm just wiping that down. Very easy to do it while the resin is still fluid. Not possible once it's cured, so might as well take it off while we see it, while it's still fluid. I'm going to put some sand dollars, starfish, and some seashells along the shore. And definitely easiest to do that now while the resin is still fluid, so that can cure right in with it. And then once I have as many as I want in there, I am going to let that cure for 24 hours. So here we are the next day. I am going to add my pink, my purple, and my blue resin layers on top again, and I'm going to do it as far as the shore that I made yesterday. The purpose of today's is to give it a little bit of dimension so it pops up a little bit. So I've got my pink down, I'm putting the purple layer down now. And then after that, I'm going to put the blue layer down and then mix the lines between the two of them again. What I really like about these color shift paints is they almost have a little bit of an opalescent-y quality to them. So they're really quite pretty to look at. And I thought they'd look really, really pretty as a little bit of a different beach. So when I mix the lines between the different colors together, I'm also going to make sure to spread the resin to the edge of the tray. I want to make sure it reaches all the way to the edge of the tray. And again, we don't want clear lines between the pink and the purple. You can see right now before I'm mixing it how there's a really clear ridge between the two, and we want to soften that up a little bit. And I just use kind of a little bit of an infinity pattern when I'm swirling my silicone stick through, just to get them blending. They'll blend a little bit more on their own as well, but I wanted to help it a little bit. So now I'm putting my clear layer down, and then I will put my white layer. And I'm putting it just about to the layer that I put down on the first layer. I don't mind seeing a little bit of that below there, but I want to do it as close as possible. This is just going to add a little bit more depth and dimension to it as well. So once I have my white down, I'm going to use the heat gun again on a low setting with the wide tip on it to release and remove all of the air bubbles that have floated to the surface. And then once none of those are left and they're not popping anymore, we're going to put the fine tip on it and use a high speed or a high setting to blow the white out over the waves. Popping all the bubbles is actually one of my favorite parts because it's just so satisfying watching them pop along the surface. So now we're going to blow the white out. So I'm holding the heat gun as horizontal as possible to the tray to help that white blow out over top of the other colors. And then once I have that done as I like, I'm going to let that cure. Typically I do it for about 24 hours. You can do it for say about 12 hours, 10 hours, but I usually leave it for a day. So this layer of waves, I'm only doing the pink and the purple so that you can see the blue layer from the wave below it. And as I'm doing the purple, I'm putting the line how I want the edge of this wave to look. And I typically do the edges of the waves a little bit different from the wave before. I don't want them all to be completely identical. Now we've got my clear layer. Make sure that your cups are a little bit far away so that you don't tip them over while you're pouring your layers. But my resin isn't so thin that it pours right out of the cup, so it actually isn't a problem. So now I'm putting my white layer down. And once again, we're going to use the heat gun to pop all the bubbles. And again, with the wide tip on a low setting to pop those bubbles. And this step is absolutely necessary. You don't want to have the look of water with a bunch of bubbles on the surface. Some of them will pop on their own, but a lot of them won't. And the heat from the heat gun really helps them to pop. So it's definitely a step that you don't want to be missing. And now put the fine tip on. Put it on a high setting so that we can blow the white out over the waves. And then this is the third layer of waves. So today I'm only using pink for the waves. So obviously you're going to be able to see the purple from the layer below and then the blue from the layer below that. And again, when I'm putting my pink down, I'm putting the edge of it how I'm wanting the edge of the wave to look. And then I put a clear layer. And I clearly didn't learn from the day before and still had my cups too close. Now I'm putting the white layer down. And then I'll use my heat gun once again to pop all of those bubbles. So the other thing that the heat gun does, it also heats up the resin, so it makes it a little bit more fluid. So it helps when you're blowing the white over as well, because the resin is a little bit more fluid than when you poured it. And then once you have that as you want it, you're going to let that set and cure. And I decided for this tray, I didn't want the entire thing to be all dimensional. I wanted to put a clear coat over top of it so everything was encased within some clear resin. So that's what I'm doing on this layer. And I've never done this before, so I actually really underestimated how much resin to use. And I ended up having to do, I think it was 3 or 4 different batches of resin to finally get the right amount of resin to fill it up so that I didn't have any bumps from the shells or and whatnot underneath. And then what ended up happening on the last, or what I thought was going to be the last layer, is even though I had it completely covered with a plastic bin to protect it while it was curing, and even though I was checking it regularly, I didn't notice that 2 hairs floated into it while it was curing. And I didn't notice that until it was completely cured. So the way to fix that is just to add another clear coat on top of it. So that's what I did. So I ended up putting more resin than I thought I was going to put in there, but that's okay. In the end, it turned out absolutely beautiful, and I really, really like it encased in a clear coat of resin. I really like how it ended up turning up that way. So that is my completed tray. Thank you so much for watching. Don't forget to hit subscribe if you want to see more.